Yeah, right, guys.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Andy.
Welcome to Game Couch.
Hello, today we're going to be taking a look at IO Interactive's and Square Enix Hitman Absolution.
Indeed, and before we get into any potential spoilers, we're going to give you a quick rundown of what we thought of the game.
In contrast to the new Assassin's Creed, the Hitman game is still all about killing.
Gameplay is well executed with lots of ways to take out your targets, meaning a lot of replay value.
The contract's idea sounded like a great idea, but wasn't that good, so...
Enemy AI is thick as fuck sometimes, could really drag you out of the narrative.
Plot's interesting, a little bit different from the previous games.
Gameplay is still fun and challenging with enough new stuff to shake it up and make it feel unique without ever losing the core style.
The tagline for this game from day one's been the original assassin is back, so we'll get stuck in and see if he actually is.
So the game opens with a cutscene explaining that Diana, who's been Jason Statham's sole handler in the agency, has actually betrayed them by exposing all the agents and emptying the bank accounts and then going into hiding. We quickly learn that Bruce Willis has been given the contract to take her out by the newly reformed agency, and after our tutorial mission, Patrick Stewart kills Diana, but in the process she tells him that there's a girl called Victoria who's very important to the newly rebuilt agency and makes John Malkovich promise to look after her.
And so begins the full tale where our hero, Vin Diesel, betrays the agency himself and has to go and protect Victoria, killing all those who dare harm her and discover the truth about who she is and why she is so important. Like we said before, the core gameplay for Hitman Absolution hasn't really changed much. Each mission usually has one or two, perhaps three targets to take out, and multiple ways in which you can do this. If you're a purist, you can take the silent assassin option. Most of your targets have ways of killing them making it look like accidents, and you can leave everybody else alive and well. Or if you're lazy, you can kick in the door and go in guns blazing on a mad rampage of violence and death.
Right. Dr. Evil has some new, we'll say tools at his disposal at this time, but loses a few from Hitman Blood Money. For e.g., because we aren't with the agency anymore, we no longer get to choose our weapon loadout at the start of each mission, and we don't get the option of upgrading your weapons either. All we get is the iconic silver ballers, and his garrote wire. Instead of upgrades, we get Instinct, which can be used for tricking enemies and point shooting.
Firstly, let's talk about point shooting. This option lends itself to those of us who like a shootout. If you have enough Instinct, you can essentially freeze time, pick out as many targets as you can see, and put them down one after the other with a single headshot. It's quite handy for removing a lot of goons from a room that's in your way, and for your efforts you get a kind of cool Matrix slow-mo camera spin that makes it look like the dudes are dying in a cloud of their own blood. You have to be quick though, because you drain Instinct quite rapidly while you pick targets. In all fairness, most of the people who play Hitman won't be the run and gun type of players. If you're like us, you'll have used this once during the tutorial and then never again. It ends up feeling more like a gimmick rather than a useful tool. It's supposed to give the impression that Lex Luthor is a highly trained assassin, but it ends up making him feel more like John Marston.
Next, as we said, you can use Instinct to trick people. Personally, I've kind of conflicting opinions of this particular tool. Basically, if you've dressed yourself in an enemy costume, enemies of the same type, for example a copper, when they see you they'll become suspicious because they don't recognise you. You can use Instinct to trick them into thinking you're a regular dude, and you do this by either tilting your hat or rubbing the back of your head, and somehow this makes them think, yeah, that's fine mate, carry on, I know you. Now, in a sense, this is fine, because in a small group of guards, one of them suddenly changing his mannerisms and such would be noticeable to those who work with him, and so being able to trick that group makes sense. What doesn't make sense is an entire factory of guards not recognise you. We all know that in a huge corporation, not everybody knows everybody, yet in Hitman, they do somehow, meaning that even when you're dressed up as a guard, you still need to sneak about and hide, which in my eyes, completely fucking defeats the object of using a disguise in the first place.
As we said before, there are a few inconsistencies of the game's AI, and stuff that takes you out of the game's believability. One of the biggest does actually involve a disguise. In one mission, you need to access the cells beneath a courthouse. Now there's a dude there who's on trial. If you wait long enough, he'll need a piss, you can follow him into the bog, steal his clothes, waltz out, get sentenced by the judge, and end up getting taken down into the cells. That's fine. But there's a few issues with that problem. One, the mental dude never shuts up. You never speak at all. Secondly, the mental dude has really long straggly hair. And there's something relatively famous about all of the guys we've mentioned so far in the game, and they're all pretty bald. And to top it off, all of these people quote quite frequently how often the mental guy has been in prison, and how much they are sick of seeing him. Yet they never realise that it's not the same guy, despite the fact that you're right in their face. But if you stand on the opposite side of a room to a copper, dressed as a copper, he'll instantly recognise that you're not a copper. That makes no sense.
It doesn't
make any sense at all.
It's really irritating. Alongside this, the game has some issues with the Metal Gear Solid syndrome we mentioned in the Assassin's Creed 3 review. You know, the type of thing where you roll from one cover to another right in front of somebody and they'll not notice. But if you accidentally stand up from cover in a different room with the door open, they'll see you straight away.
What was that noise?
Exactly.
The gameplay is still quite fun. To complete each mission objectives, you were forced to think ahead and quite organically explore relatively large environments, so you know how you're going to make each kill. On the subject of detail, the game's graphics are very, very nice, despite a few odd facial animations, mainly when it comes to the lip syncing.
I suppose to cap it all off, we thought Voldemort's latest adventure in assassination was decent enough. Morpheus speaks more and the overall plot feels more personally intriguing than previous installments. Like we said, it's fun and challenging, but it's far from perfect. It certainly isn't the best Hitman game in the series. To be honest, we've sounded quite negative during the review, but that's mainly because the overall game is very good, but because of that, the bad stuff seems to stand out even more. We definitely recommend you play it and see for yourself, but don't expect it to blow your mind like the hype would suggest that it will.
That was Hitman Absolution. I hope you enjoyed it.
As usual, if you've got any thoughts or requests for videos you want us to do in the future, stick them in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and check out our older stuff.
Also, check us out on Facebook and Twitter for any updates and to see what we're up to outside of the channel. See you later.
Bye. Something brown.